And now we are looking only to the future. We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. I will always put America first. Just like you, as the leaders of your countries, will always and should always put your countries first. All responsible leaders have an obligation to serve their own citizens, and the nation-state remains the best vehicle for elevating the human condition. But making a better life for our people also requires us to work together in close harmony and unity to create a more safe and peaceful future for all people. The United States will forever be a great friend to the world, and especially to its allies.
Not just the Russian Air Force, Ukraine's allies are also missing in action. The initial resolve has fizzled away. Now it's every country for itself, and that's what we saw on Thursday at the EU summit. It was typical European stuff. The Palace of Versailles in the background, a huge red carpet for the leaders, guards dressed in imperial style, all the pomp, none of the substance. Years later, we may look back at this meeting. The smiling faces, the grand optics, all of it will be a reminder of Europe's betrayal. The summit where Ukraine was abandoned. Day one was all about the war. Should Ukraine be fast-tracked into the European Union? Should more sanctions be imposed on Russia? On both issues, the verdict was clear. Not happening. And it's not just the rejection, it's the manner of rejection. Listen to this.
Except Eastern Germany in times of Helmut Kohl, nobody entered the European Union overnight.
EU accession of Ukraine is something for the long term, if at all. It's not up to the Commission to assess the membership application, and then for the Council to take a view on this, but that will take months, maybe years. So,
how encouraging was that? Ukraine is being ravaged by Russian airstrikes. Hundreds of citizens are already dead. Hospitals and schools are being flattened. And what does Europe say? Nobody enters the Union overnight. The Dutch Prime Minister went further. He says, if at all the accession happens, it will be in the long term. What good is that? Ukraine's future is uncertain right now. There may not be a long term. And EU membership will not solve the uncertainty, but it would boost the morale. Nobody is asking for an overnight membership. But what about political commitment? A promise that Ukraine will become a member for sure. Latvia, for instance, made this demand.
I think it's extremely important that we, as the Union, could take this decision to have a very clear signal that we want Ukraine to join the Union. We want Ukraine to be part of the family of democratic, freedom-loving nations.
Most Baltic states said the same thing. They wanted an aggressive European policy. Just one problem: nobody listened to them. The powerful members in Western Europe firmly shut the door. I'm talking about states like France and Germany. They think Ukraine would be a liability. These comments from Emmanuel Macron betray that sentiment.
Nous aurons une discussion ce soir, elle est importante.
Can we begin the membership process with a country at war? I don't think so. Should we close the door and say never? That would be unfair. Can we forget about the balance in the region? We need to be cautious.
Est-ce qu'on doit fermer la porte et dire jamais? Ce serait injuste.
What is Macron's cautious plan? To refer Ukraine to the European Commission. The Commission will give its assessment on whether membership is possible. And how long would that take? Up to 18 months. This is not caution. This is not pragmatism. Let's call it what it is. A betrayal. Before Russia invaded, the West made all sorts of promises, military aid, unprecedented sanctions, but now they're making a U-turn on everything. Take NATO membership, for instance. In 2008, Western leaders promised to include Ukraine and Georgia. I have that joint declaration with me. Let me read it out from there. NATO welcomes Ukraine's and Georgia's Euro-Atlantic aspirations for membership in NATO. We agreed today that these countries will become members of NATO. That was 2008. 14 years later, the West is having second thoughts. The EU foreign policy chief says NATO's promise was a mistake. I'll quote from what he said. There are moments that we could have done better. There are things that we proposed and then could not implement, such as the promise that Ukraine and Georgia would become part of NATO. I think it's a mistake to make promises you can't deliver. How convenient. Just look at what's happened to Ukraine since that promise. They lost Crimea. They lost parts of Donbass. Today they're at war. All because NATO made a fake promise. Who pays for that mistake? Definitely not Europe. Let me take you back to 2014. The Euromaidan protests erupted in Ukraine. What was that protest for? A European Union membership. For closer ties with Europe. That's what the people of Ukraine protested for. More than 100 Ukrainians died in those protests. What more does Brussels want? The fact is, Europe was never serious about Ukraine. They used Kiev to poke Vladimir Putin. In fact, they're still doing it. Only one big decision was taken by the EU leaders on Thursday. Do you know what the decision was? More military aid. Europe is doubling military assistance to Ukraine, and the message is clear. You keep fighting. Meanwhile, we will lounge around in the Palace of Versailles. Just think about it. The West wants to keep Ukraine in this limbo. Will they offer membership? No, they won't. Will they let Ukraine be neutral and not join NATO? No, they won't. What does that tell you? Ukraine was just a fun political experiment, and Europe is one of those typical characters you see in movies, the guy who keeps urging everyone to fight, but when the fighting actually breaks out, he scoots.
And there you have it. Kahalayam La Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. All praises to the Most High Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostle elders of Great Millstone. Men who have labored and suffered in this truth for over 30 plus years, making their lives and their bodies a living sacrifice. I also like to send a shalom to the hopefully elect, 1/3 of the nation of Israel, the speckled bird, scattered throughout the four winds of America, Slakia, of the world, north, south, east, and west. I also like to send a shalom to the various GMS camps, heads, elders, and last but not least, I'd like to send a shalom to any of you Akim that are out on the highways and hedges, not named GMS, but walking one body, one spirit in Yahweh Shai with the 100% truth. To you all, shalom. Hey, with friends like this, who needs enemies? So France and Germany and the EU are reneging. NATO has had the Ukrainians in limbo and Georgia, but you know that Russia took back Russia. Slovakia took back Georgia. See, this is all, like I say, prophesied. But now this is all in what I'm about to say through the Spirit. This is all, pertaining to the same subject. These people are betraying one another. That's why I played that clip starting off with Donald Trump in the beginning, his inaugural speech, America First, and only America. And then his speech to the UN Security Council, America First, peace and security. Peace and security, But, these folks are no good to one another. They can't be good to anyone else. But I want to touch on President Macron, the French president. Now, mind you, you would just think, you know, because Russia is the major, if not the backbone of the natural resource provider in Europe. If they're not top gun, they're one of the probably top three. Mind you, United States just put sanctions on Russia as far as receiving any goods, exports or imports rather from Russia. It's about 200 things on the list, and that oil and natural resources has really made America take a hit over here. Now, you think France and Germany and those EU countries, they're not paying that any attention? They'll be stupid not to, you know. So you know, you would think they're not going to really push this issue about Ukraine, you know, joining the EU. That's why they've been, 13, 14 years now with the Ukrainians in limbo. You know, it's not hard to figure out. They don't want to end up like the U.S. with gas prices spiking and whatnot, you know. And that's not to say that there's not high gas prices in France and Germany and those countries over there. They're not really just putting the information out about them on that level. But I think it's safe to say that they're going to keep their relationship with Putin as comfortable, as tolerable as possible, because you know they got enough protesting and people upset with their government leaders as it is. You know, but this betrayal, oh man, you can see it coming. And ultimately, just like Georgia and Crimea, and there's been a few other ones that Russia has taken back under the fold. It's starting to look like the old Soviet Union again. I want to grab a scripture real quick. Just like I said, all this is prophesied anyway, you know. Let's see. We're in the time of prophecy, so, you know, we got to conduct ourselves by the way of the Spirit and filter this best that we know how by the Spirit, or slack it through the Spirit. Now, this is Ezekiel 38, and it reads, starting at the top, and the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog. Now, the land, Gog is a son of according to the book of Genesis, I can't think right off the top. Let me see. I think it's in the book of Genesis. Real quick. Let me see if I can find this. Let's see. Real quick. Because I had written this down a while back. But Gog is actually the son of Japhet. I want to get that scripture where I think it's in the book of Genesis where it speaks. It brings that up. Now, whether I'll be able to find it or not, I don't know. I have it written in my notes because I was actually looking some of this up, you know. So let me see. It's in the book of Genesis 12. Don't quote me on that. Well, I'm back at my Daniel 11 notes now, so I'm gonna abandon that real quick. Let's go and read the scripture here. It reads, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog. Now, the land of Magog is the land that the Russians occupy now. You know, those Edomites, so-called Russians, you know, occupying that land. It says, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh thy power, behold, I am against thee, O God, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine armies, horses and horsemen, and all them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. And then he went on to say, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya with them, all of them with shields and helmets. Now Persia, that's going into the Iranians now. And you know, the Ethiopians, those are the sons of Ham, Cush, Libya, you know, Gomer and his bands in the house of Tugamar of the North Quarter, and all his bands, and many people with thee. So this is all being set up. And I say that to say this, because the Ukrainians had their back turned. Had NATO and the EU have essentially backdoored the Ukrainians. Got them in all this mix-up, this dust-up with Russia. You understand? And the track record of the U.S. and these so-called white folks, because these are all white folks, Ukrainians and Russians and EU and NATO, mainly they're all Edomites. I ain't gonna say that they're all Edomites, because they do consist of other nations, but, you know, the ones that really running the show, you see the faces being plastered all over the TV majority of the time, so-called white folk. Anyway, they turned their backs, you know. 18-year or a 14-year application dealing with NATO and EU, and this is what you get. You get your schools bombed, churches bombed, you know, you get a good rallying speech from the Biden Harris administration, but no boots on the ground, no real help, no acceptance into NATO where you can really have the backing of the coalition of the allies. None of that. So what you think these people gonna do? Because it was said that there was reports that and I wasn't able to pull those up. That hold up real quick, Slacky. Let me see if I can pull it up. Okay, Slacky, I was able to pull it up. Now, this betrayal or this turning their back on Ukraine by the EU and NATO, what do you think that this man, President Zelensky, Vladimir Zelensky, what other options do he have? Now, we just read in Ezekiel 38 and verse 4 that the Most High say he will put the hooks and turn them back. Now, one would believe that the old Soviet Union going to come back together, because it's showing that the West, NATO and the U.S. and its allies are just full of game. You understand? Because Putin has been making strategic moves over here in the East European or Russia, Siberian country over there, you know, that tundra, whatever they call it. He's been in power for over, what, 20 years now. So, you know, he's been making chess moves by way of the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, unbeknownst to him. That all this works itself out to Ezekiel 38. This is more proof that the Lord is orchestrating this, because through the track record of Esau Edom, it always shows that this man he's just no good. Even to his own, he's no good. But I want to read this real quick. It says, Russian-Ukraine war, Zelensky asks Putin for direct talks. Ukraine's president also calls on Western leaders to give him more planes if they won't impose a no-fly zone. Now, he been asking for that for about 2-3 weeks now. It says Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has urged his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, to sit down for direct talks and end Russia's invasion of his country, while also calling on the West to increase military aid to Kiev. I guess that's the capital, yeah, Kiev. Speaking to journalists at his heavily fortified office in Ukrainian's capital, Zelensky on Thursday warned the West that Russia may advance to the rest of Europe if Putin's military offensive succeeds. It's not that I want to talk to Putin, the Ukrainian president said. I need to talk to Putin. The world needs to talk to Putin. There's no other way to stop this war. Because guess what? The West ain't gonna, it was just a setup. Just like the reporter said, it was just an experiment. It was an experiment. Now, it was an experiment. Biden administration shields Ukrainians and U.S. from deportation. Russia's Putin says Ukraine advance going to plan. But now, if you look at the news over here, they said that the Ukrainians were smashing the Russians. Oh, Putin didn't anticipate this and anticipate that. If that's the case, then why does this man want to sit down with Putin? See, the truth comes out. You can listen to these propaganda lies and the mainstream news media over here in the West, Babylon the Great, aka America, you know what I'm saying? But truth, it's gonna manifest itself. It says, then addressing Putin, he said, "What do you want from us? Leave our land, sit down with me, just not 30 meters away," he added, making a reference to Putin receiving world leaders at an enormously long table. Putin launched a Russian invasion of Ukraine last week, describing it as a special military operation aimed at dislodging neo-Nazis ruling the country. The West responded with unprecedented sanctions on Moscow, but Russian forces are continuing their assault on the Ukrainian cities, including the capital Kiev, I said that correctly then, in the north, the second biggest city of Kharkiv in the east, and the port city of Kherson and Mariupol in the south. Port cities, so, The 8-day-long conflict has killed and wounded thousands of people and sent more than 1 million refugees fleeing into countries neighboring Ukraine. So, anyway, let's see where this is at. This is on Al Jazeera News, and you can go to aljazeera.com, Al Jazeera. You can go read this, but yeah. What did you expect, going back to, real quick, what you expect this man to do when you have the people claiming they're going to back you, then ultimately turn their backs on you? Verse 4 of Ezekiel 38, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaw, and will bring thee forth, and all thy armies, horses, horsemen, and all them clothed with bucklers, or slacking, all clothed with all sort of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them having swords. I wouldn't be surprised when it's all said and done. God dang, to the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, I wouldn't be surprised if, the old Soviet Union do come back together. Because one by one, they're being shown that the West is just full of game, broken promises. Now, and that's furthermore, well, you should believe the Most High and not men. Watching all this, that's why we should always put our faith in the Most High, because man gonna lie to you. Let's just call it what it is. Apostle Peter said this. Let's see if I can find it. This is Acts 5 and verse 29. This says, "Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God than men." That wasn't the one I was really looking for, but that was going into some situations with I do believe with Ananias. Going back to Acts. Yes, I think this is it. Yeah, let's see. This is, yeah. Because the Most High know all things. The Spirit revealeth even to the men that deal with the Most High, that the Most High is dealing with. So, anyway. The title of the video is, with friends like this, who needs enemies, And so let's go to the Apocrypha real quick. Real quick. Because just like I said, this man can't do no good. It's not in him to do it. Not even amongst his own peers, I'm going to read this real quick. This is Ecclesiastes, a.k.a. Sirach, 14:1, and it reads, "Blessed is the man that has not slipped with his mouth and is not pricked with the multitude of sins." Well, that's most definitely not Esau Edom. Yeah, gather for his own soul, gathering for others that shall spend his goods. Right, I can't pronounce that. Anyway, let me go to the scripture that I'm looking for. Here it is right here. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 5. No, yeah, Ecclesiastes chapter 14, Salakia, and verse 5. And it reads, "He that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good?" And that's basically the Esau, these so-called white folks in a nutshell. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's anyone who carries this trait, this type of spirit about them. It could be a Jake, it could be the heathens, but we're talking about a heathen, the wicked right now, you understand? And more than not, the so-called white man could not be even good to himself when he chemtrails the skies and, he violates the land by not letting the land rest after the 7-year plan. He don't abide by the land Sabbath, he pollutes the water, he defiles the food. He does all this, and then him himself has to live in these conditions that he has created. This man hasn't, it goes without saying, this man don't have good sense, So he is evil to himself. He that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his good works, because he don't have any. How can you take pleasure in good works when you don't have good works? Everything that this man strive to do, he says for the good, but given his nature, it's all for destruction. You know, he makes medicines, you know, Tylenol and Advil, things of this sort. And I'm just throwing little things out there, you know. But in the world as a phrase, that's a necessary evil because the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua created herbs. You understand? To heal. You follow what I'm saying? But he through his name escapes me. Not the Rothschild, but what are the other prominent family? Name escapes me. Rockefeller. Can't remember his name, but it was a Rockefeller that funded oil, because all your medicine is based in oil for the most part. You understand? He funded all of this, and then he funded a think tank or a lobbying group to demonize herbs and holistic medicines and holistic healers and whatnot. This is the man, he that is evil to himself. All for what? For profit. You know, one day his family members or something gonna need some herbs, or gonna need something for healing themselves. But you go on this tirade to ban this and to demonize that just for filthy lucre's sake. Anyway, that goes in. He takes no pleasure in his good works, because there's nothing he could do that's good. Verse 6, it says, "There is none worse than he that envieth himself." And you see this Edomite against Edomite, this in-house fighting. You know, Russians and the Warsaw Pact against the Americans, Canadians, and the NATO, the EU. All of these are majority Edomites, so-called white people. You know what I'm saying? So there is none worse than he that envieth himself. They envy one another. And they envy the Lord's chosen people as well. Don't get me wrong. That's why they emulate everything you do. You come up with a new handshake, they take that and, you know, commercialize it. You know, you take potato chips and put chili on them. They pay that attention and pay attention to that and make some potato chips with chili cheese flavor. Yeah, come on now. Jake is the envy of, Slocky. Jake is the inventor of all things, roughly paraphrasing. Anyway, let's read on. It says, "There is none worse than he that envieth himself, and this is a recompense of his wickedness." Okay? "And if he doeth good, he doeth it unwillingly." See what I'm saying? If he do anything good, that wasn't his intention. My intention wasn't the help. And at the last, he will declare his wickedness. And in the end, you know, talking about, he gonna show that wasn't his intention to do anything good. Anyway, man, these folks we're watching the end of Esau Edom's or the so-called white man's rulership. It's falling apart right before our very eyes. And guess what? They're doing it to themselves. Can't point the fingers at nobody else. It's an in-house fight. And the Lord has brilliantly orchestrated this. All you have to do is read the scriptures. Anyway, the Lord willing, it was edifying. I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Double honors to the apostle elders of Great Millstone. Shalom.